making it an even harder target than Fordo. Joining us now from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Dr. Jonathan Schanzer. Dr. Schanzer, thank you for getting up and being with us today. And just for our viewers that are just waking up to this news, those three nuclear facilities and sites that were struck, you can see Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. We're learning today that Isfahan may have been an even harder target to hit because of deep tunnels. Of course, in Fordo, this was the under a mountain underground site that only the U.S. bombs could penetrate. But I just, Dr. Schanzer, want to sort of talk about Isfahan for just a second, because we're learning there was a lot of enrichment going on there, centrifuges. This is where Israel earlier in previous days took out scientists. And the facility, obviously the labs there. And the most important thing is it was the site that had the infrastructure for converting the enriched uranium. Your organization has done quite a lot building upon the May 31 IAEA report about their findings for the first time in 20 years, saying that their enrichment to 60% and beyond was in breach of a proliferation treaty. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that statement absolutely triggered a crisis. And I think it was an important thing for the international community to acknowledge that the regime was, in fact, marching forward with its nuclear program. And as we understand it, it was finally the thing that got the United States and Israel on the same page as it related to Iran's possible breakout. Isfahan, I think, has been damaged significantly by the Israelis. I think we need to stress here that the Israelis have done a lot of the heavy lifting leading up to the president's historic strike last night, where he finished the job that the Israelis started. But this was the facility where gas would be converted to metal, and metal is what is needed for a warhead. And this is what the Israelis have largely destroyed. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't elements here that the Israelis are still trying to get their hands on. My understanding is that there is still there are stocks of enriched uranium that the Israelis would like to spirit out of the country. I think the question that we all have right now is whether that enriched uranium is entombed underground. If it is, then we may not need to do anything here, in terms of next steps, in terms of extraction. Yeah. But that has, I think, been the primary question. The other question that's come up from a technical perspective is, well, first of all, the BDA, that battle damage assessment. How bad is Fordo hit? Can we say it's destroyed? We've seen actually some reports that may not have been 6, but in fact 12 bunker busters, but we need to get that assessment from the Pentagon today. Yeah, we do. And that battle damage assessment likely coming at 8 a.m. You'll be able to see that here on Fox. We'll take that press conference with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. But before I run out of time, Dr. Schanzer, I think one of the remaining questions now is what will be Iran's response? And as we have pointed out here, there was literally, and I'm going to use a red marker because that's what it is, a ring of fire after decades of Iran investing in these proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Shiite militias in Iraq. Do you anticipate that we could see a response not only from Iran towards U.S. troops in the Middle East, but maybe from some of these proxies? Look, Griff, I think it would be suicide for the regime to start activating its proxies to begin to attack the United States. We watched last night as the Iranian regime fired something like 86 ballistic missiles at Israel, and they're feeling it today in Israel. There was some damage done. I think that that's the safe bet, and that's not safe, by the way, for the regime, because the Israelis are back at it, targeting them with those F-35s, and they're hunting for those ballistic missiles and the military structures and the leadership structures. That is not going to go well for the regime over time, but they could try to ensnare the Israelis into a war of attrition. But dragging the United States into this, you heard the president last night, he issued that stark warning. He does not want to see American blood spilled here. The regime has been put on notice. Now I guess the ball's in their court. We heard that they've talked about cutting off the Straits of Hormuz. We've heard them talk about the threat to American service members, but so far those look like empty threats, and I think that's probably the wise move for the regime.
It's a dangerous time, Dr. Schanzer, and certainly everyone on high alert in the Middle East. Dr. Jonathan Schanzer, thanks for taking time today.
Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, it's a historic moment for the Middle East, but Democrats